Ow!
Greetings, YouTube. This is DecKrash, better known as Brandon. Alright, after the last few stressful videos that I've done, I decided to do something a bit more relaxing, and actually something that I've been wanting to do for quite some time. Alright, I recently learned that Disney is planning on a remake of an old movie called Flight of the Navigator. Never heard of it? Doesn't surprise me. It's one of the less known of Disney's movies. It came out back in 1986. The 80s, unfortunately, with the exception of the end of that decade, with the release of The Little Mermaid, was not very kind to the House of Mouse. But this was one of the few real gems that they managed to produce during the 80s that really stands the test of time. If you can get a hold of it, and it shouldn't be hard to find. I think it's still available on DVD. I don't know if they've ever released it on Blu-ray though. Okay, to get to the point, the Flight of the Navigator, it starts off in the year 1978, excuse me. It centers around a little boy named David Freeman who he goes out at night on the 4th of July to go and pick up his little brother who was staying at a friend's house. It's not really far down the road. He takes sort of a back way across the railroad track and ends up accidentally falling down a ravine after his brother scares the living daylights out of him. When he wakes up, he goes to his house and all of a sudden finds different people living there and just wondering what is going on. They're freaking out because some strange kid is saying, "Where's my mom and dad?" And of course they don't know who he is, so they call the police up and see if he's a missing boy. So they run him through the computers and find out he's been missing for 8 years. So this kid fell into a ravine and wakes up and gets knocked unconscious and wakes up finding out it's 8 years later. So from that point on, people are trying to figure out what happened to him in those 8 years, and so they start hooking him up to encephalographs and things like that, trying to find out if there's any kind of strange brain activity or whatever. Because not only is it 8 years later, but he hasn't aged, and he's returned to his family once they find their family. Once they find his family, who has moved, once they return to his family, they find him having not aged after 8 years and wearing the same clothes that he was wearing when he turned up missing. So anyway, after trying to get matters back in line with his family, they also take him to some psychiatrists in hospitals to see if they can figure out what had happened. Because their family's grateful that their son is back, but still a 12-year-old boy when he should be 20. So they find his brain starts doing really weird things to the computers, and so the computer starts printing out this strange flying saucer-like spacecraft that NASA just happened to find after it crashed into an electrical station. So they find the connection and decide to go and get David for further tests. And reluctantly he goes. And then they put electrodes on his brain. His brain when they start questioning him about where he had been for the last 8 years, it actually starts communicating with the computers at NASA, which are of course a lot more powerful than the computers, I guess, that were at the hospital. And it starts communicating, telling him where he's been, why he's been out. I don't want to really spoil it for you, but basically all this leads to that alien spacecraft, which calls David to him and takes him for a ride. The whole purpose of the ride has to do with why he was missing for 8 years. Now, the cool thing about the movie is just not only the story, which is just amazing. I mean, it's a very child-focused movie. I played it for my kids when I was a teacher. So it's focused on a little boy, and it deals with that kind of thing. I mean, how would you feel if suddenly you woke up the next day and found out it was 8 years later, everything had changed except for you? If you had any family, they're all 8 years older. Your little brother is now older than you. Your entire world just turned upside down. He is 12 years old. All his friends are now 20, so they're all most likely in college. Where he's still stuck as a 12-year-old boy. So he has to kind of get used to a life interrupted. And then not only that, once you find out the reason why you were taken, it's just wow. So the story is despite the really interesting premise of the whole movie, which deals with why he was missing for 8 years, and his connection with that alien spacecraft, it is very centered on people. So it's a very relatable story. It doesn't go so far into science fiction territory that it causes you to just scratch your head. It doesn't get really cerebral. It's actually a very light science fiction story. But it's just loads of fun, especially when, you know, David is in the ship and he has to pilot it at some point. And, well, we have David being played by a boy named Joey Kramer. Unfortunately, I don't think he did anything since that role. I think he said that, you know, Hollywood really wasn't for him. Then we have a small role by Sarah Jessica Parker as one of the interns at NASA. And also Paul Rubens, aka Pee Wee Herman, doing the voice for Max, the AI on board the ship. And he really, for those of you who have watched my Tron Uprising reviews, I really love Paul Rubens because I never knew that guy had such a really amazing talent for voice acting, and I should have, seeing how he can do the whole Pee Wee Herman thing and yet make his voice sound very deep in one moment and almost sound really childish, you know, the next moment. So, you know, if you want to see a good glimpse of Paul Rubens' voice acting talents outside of just him being Pee Wee Herman and playing Pavel in Tron Uprising, I highly recommend you check out Flight of the Navigator. It also has some really good uses of set design for the inside of the ship and puppetry in the way that the ship's AI manifests itself as this like moving eye-like thing that moves around the ship encased in silver. Also the puppetry that's used for all the other alien creatures that are on board the ship. And also, this movie is famous for one of the first uses of what's called, I think it's not texture mapping, what was it called? Environment mapping. It's when they take like the surrounding area of certain frames of camera and just kind of fold it in so the object looks like it's reflecting everything around it. And they did that for the scenes for the ship as it's flying. And the ship was one of the coolest things that had come out in a while. The ship had the ability to change shape if it needed to fly very fast, and then when it would land, it would go back to sort of its flying saucer, sort of almost a football type shape. And it was always had that silvery sheen to it. And then the little steps that came out from it whenever you needed to get out of the ship, they looked like they were floating in the air. I thought that was always pretty cool too. Now, I'm looking on Wikipedia, and it said the effect of the door liquefying to form them was achieved through stop-motion animation. Well, that's pretty obvious. And then creating a series of metallic sculptures for every frame of the animation. They appeared to support David's weight with a simple optical illusion. They were mounted on thin beams, which were angled in such a way that they themselves hid the beams from the camera's lens. And that just one scene where David actually gets out looking for directions back home. It's just like one of the funniest scenes in all of movies. I'm kind of wondering if people nowadays will even get the joke. You have to have been familiar with another movie that was still relatively recent at the time, called E.T. So anyway, the movie was just a real sight to see. It was kind of mixed in the box office, but it's a movie that I remember very, very fondly. I absolutely adored it. And I actually have the movie on DVD myself. It was one of those when it used to come on the Disney Channel, I used to watch it again and again and again and again. So it's just, I absolutely loved it. And most people who have memories of watching Flight of the Navigator speak of it with just really, real fondness. It was a simple movie. It wasn't terribly complicated. Great sci-fi, great effects, great acting all around. Joey Kramer really did a great job playing, and I keep saying great, but he did a great job playing David in that one. And so it made him a very relatable character. And all the other characters very relatable. His parents and the people at NASA. The guy who was like the head of NASA, playing a good villain. He was a villain that really meant well. So he wasn't necessarily a real bad guy. So, I highly recommend the movie. Now, flash forward to, of course, 2012. Actually, the first whispers about the movie being remade came out in 2009. But fast forward to, 2013. And recently, IGN has done a few videos on YouTube about a remake of Flight of the Navigator. So at first I was really worried because, well, you know how the old saying goes, you don't want to mess with perfection. And as far as kids movies go, Flight of the Navigator is probably as close to a perfect movie as you can get. Its humor and it wasn't hard to understand. It was simple but not audience insulting. It had some pretty high-minded concepts with some really advanced concepts, but presented in a very simple way so that people could understand it, even a younger audience. And it was just loads of fun. I mean, you can, like I said, it's a movie you can watch over and over again. So I watching this all, they're making a remake of this movie, and I was both excited and yet scared because I'm like, man, I don't know if I want another Flight of the Navigator movie. Well, Hollywood's gone sequel crazy as of late, as if they have run out of good ideas. And so they're taking old movies and making remakes. And I meant to say remake crazy, not sequel crazy. Please excuse me. And so, yeah, making a remake to Flight of the Navigator just seems like an interesting idea, but not one that I'm was not really all that thrilled about until they made a second video talking to one of I think it was one of the writers for the remake, and he said that he went on a really detailed discussion on what Flight of the Navigator was all about, and he had it down pat. It was at its heart about loss, about what you would do if your entire life was turned around. Like that. Poor kid waking up, finding out it's 8 years later, and all he did is just fell down a ravine and hit his head. As far as he was concerned, like, when did I turn to Rip Van Winkle? So that little interview made me feel a bit better about it. And so I'm actually kind of looking forward to seeing what Disney will do, and seeing how Disney still got their hands in this. I'm feeling a bit more comfortable. Disney's had its share of lemons, but on the whole, Disney tries like crazy to give a good movie. There have been times where they have, dropped the ball and kind of been a bit audience insulting at times. More often, as of late, they've made fairly good things. So I, for one, can't wait to see what happens with this remake. Now, there may be some of you who aren't quite so thrilled, or maybe not quite so optimistic, and I respect that. If you want to go ahead and respond, give me your thoughts in the video, please do. As always, keep it civil. And, that's all I have to say about that. Like I said, I'm looking forward to it. I want to see what they can do, and I want to see if they can get, just as good an actor as Joey Kramer was when it came to playing David, and see if they can still maintain the theme. There were a lot of things that I wish they would have expanded on in the original, and I want to see if they'll expand on those. And I'm sorry if I'm being a little evasive when it comes to the plot. I really, really want you guys out there to see this movie. It's amazing. So, I think that's it for me.